Good. Oh my gosh, my boyfriend's kid has found this Italian band called Måneskin, and they have an album, like they have a couple albums, and one of them is just all covers, and one of the covers is the Black Eyed Peas Let's Get It Started in here. So I've heard that song more in the last month than I had in the last 5 years because of that album. Right. Yeah, there are definitely songs that they play a few too many times on repeat. All right. Hello, everybody. How are you today? Thank you so much for joining me for Pilates All Levels. My name is Audra, and I want you to listen to your body. Don't do anything that doesn't feel right. Feel free to modify if you need to, or take breaks if you need to. And today we have a ball as a prop. If you're at home and you don't have one, you can fold a pillow a couple times. And you can also just entirely get rid of the prop if it's not working for you. Great, let's get started. On our back, we're actually going to slide the ball underneath our sacrum. So coming into a supine position, slide your prop underneath your hips, letting your weight just kind of rest onto it and see how you're feeling. So with the prop, we want it on your sacrum, that triangular bone in between your cheeks. If it's on your low back, it's a little too high. And if it feels like it's about to shoot across the room, it's maybe just a little too low. So as we breathe, we're actually going to try to send our breath into the ball. And then exhale, think about your ribs and hip bones just gently pulling towards your belly button without changing the shape of your spine. Just a couple breaths. So if you're like, why are we sending our breath into the ball? It's actually so we can try to get our diaphragm and pelvic floor to lower on our inhale, letting our ribs widen. And then exhale, getting a little bit of engagement from our transverse abdominis. Couple more here. Last one where we're just focusing on our breath. On your next exhale, without focusing too much on muscular activation, we'll get there. We're just gonna tuck our tailbone, let our lower back lower towards the ground a little bit. Think about pushing the ball or rolling the ball away a little, and then coming back to neutral. Right? If you come past neutral and your back arches or your ribs pop, you've probably gone just a little too far. So exhale, just slide the ball away, let your lower back sink towards the ground a little. Inhale, come back to neutral. We're trying to do this without too much force, right? We can always make our body work a little bit harder, but we don't always need to apply 100% of our force for like 10% requirement. Two more. And come back to center. Now, think about a typewriter. We're just gonna slowly typewriter our hips from side to side, trying to keep your knees relatively still and stable. We're just getting a little bit of movement through our low back. And if your knees aren't coming with you, we're also getting a little bit of movement in that hip joint, right? Because we're sliding our pelvis around our thigh bones. We have just a couple more like this. Try to find easy glide as if your body is on an ice skating rink, just sliding back and forth. Last one, each side. Come back to center. And then just allow one hip to rotate down slightly. If you're back arched, it's not a big deal, but see if you can relax your ribs down. Come back to center, rotate to the other side. You might have to slide your hips a little bit to the side to get the hip to rotate down if the ball is really big. But once again, it should be relatively easy. Free like gliding movement. Couple more. Last one, each side. Coming back to center. Now maintaining your neutral position. We're not moving our spine this time. On your exhale, think about the front of your body kind of sinking down so much that you're trying to pop the ball. You're just letting your hips be heavy, trying to pop the ball. So you're just applying a little bit more pressure and then relax. Now, if you did this by lowering your low back, see if next time you can maintain a neutral position, because it's not about moving this time. It's about just using a little bit more muscle recruitment. Stephanie, relax your hips a little bit. Yeah. Tailbone down slightly. Take your booty out. Other direction. Yeah. Then move the ball a little bit so you've got more support. Yeah. And don't press as hard. Is that better? Yeah. I mean, you can like tuck a little bit, but try not to over tuck when you press down. Yeah. There's also a tendency to want to squeeze our glutes here. So I'd like you to try to let them be relaxed. Last two. Last one, find that exhale, find just a little tiny bit of engagement and float one leg to tabletop. Now reach that knee away from you. The foot's going to come down, push the foot into the floor, find the other side. And notice if one hip wants to hike or rotate. And reach the knee away, press the foot down, and then allow the float from the other leg to happen. Couple more. Reaching long for your sits bones. And letting that thigh bone just fold gently in the socket, right? So if you feel your hip flexors being like, I'm helping, doing all the work, think about melting that thigh bone into the hip socket. So your hip flexors, of course, should work because we're coming into hip flexion, but they shouldn't do all the work, right? We're trying to stabilize through our deep abdominals. And our inner thighs also help us here, just like our diaphragm. And if for any reason being in this position doesn't feel great on your back, you can always do it on the floor and just gently press your sacrum into the mat instead. One more, each side. Everybody feeling that little bit of abdominal engagement as you press down into the ball and float that leg up? Now hold this last one. Inhale, exhale, bring your other leg to meet it. So both legs are in your tabletop. If you're in a 90-90 and your quads are just going crazy, bring your knees in a little or lower your heels slightly. Now imagine pushing your feet into a wall so your hamstrings kick on a little bit. And then push one foot even farther away from you, reaching it to the opposite wall. And then allow it to fold in. Other side. And back. Now, this can easily be done on the floor without a prop, which is fine. If you've got your hips on the ball or a pillow, you might feel a little shifting. And that just tells you if there's a part of the movement that's a little unstable, or if maybe your body has a strategy that you didn't know about, right? Maybe one hip wants to hike or rotate. As you push away, think about that thigh bone connecting up to your ribs. Two more. Last set. And then bring one knee in closer, push the other foot away. Now, the foot that's pressed away, let the heel come down to the ground without letting the back arch. And in fact, if you want, you can even tuck your tailbone and just see if maybe your leg wants to be pulled out to the side, or if it hikes up. It's just information. And then press down into your heel, slide it in, other side. Press and then let it just come down. See what it wants to do. And then drag it in. And again, reach, bring it down, drag in. Now you can either keep the opposite knee really close to your chest to offload you and get you a little bit more of that hip flexor stretch. You can even do that with your hands supporting you. Or if you're like, nope, I like this challenge, you can keep the leg a little bit more upright. Try to get that hamstring to kick on just a little bit to help that hip flexor calm down just a little bit if it tends to like to overwork. Then bring both feet together. Squeeze your inner thighs together as if you're trying to pop a balloon, and bring your hands to the sky. Now, we're actually going to use our hands as a prop. So bring your left hand on top of your right hand. Your right hand is going to match the pressure from your shoulder, not your pec or neck. And your left hand is actually going to press in from your armpit and oblique. So using your armpit and oblique, you're going to push your left hand into your right hand, close your ribs. Inhale, exhale, push one foot away. And fold it in. Now it's going to feel very different when you push the opposite foot away. Really put pressure into your hand. That right or that left hand should be working. That serratus oblique connection should be nice and active here, yeah? Do you feel how if you are actually pushing your hands into each other, it helps light up your abs a little bit more? I'll take your silence as a yes. And that's great. One more, each side. And if extending your leg all the way doesn't work for you, chop your toe down or march. That's fine too. Now all we're going to do is switch hands. Really push in with that right oblique and armpit, yeah? And maybe one side is easier to feel than the other one. That just gives us information about what our body's strategy is, right? Once again, if you feel your neck doing the work, make sure that your shoulders are out of the ears without force and kind of protracted, so wrapping around the rib cage a little bit, pushing more with that pinky finger than the thumb. Last one, each side. Bring your hands down. Your palms can either face the sky or each other. Bring one leg at a time down. Now find your imprint gently, press down into your big toe mound, and then lift your hips. Hold, making sure that your weight is not on your neck and we're not flipping our ribs up, right? Our weight is on our shoulders, our tailbone is tucked. Slide your prop out from underneath you. Now just melt your throat and then melt your sternum away from your throat. And then melt your ribs into the floor. Melt the tissue of your low back into the ground, coming into neutral. And then exhale, see if you can peel your spine up the opposite way, as if you're peeling a sticker off the wall. And then melt. Having actually peeled the sticker off the wall not too long ago, it's actually not the greatest cue because they always tend to like break and peel in different positions. So in an ideal world, right? Couple more. Just seeing if there are any sticky spots in your spine, right? So if there are, don't try to force them to articulate like the rest of your spine. Breathe through the movement. Lengthening your knees away from your face, drawing your heels towards you, and then melt and roll. Widening through your sits bones here. Now, see if you can find a relatively neutral pelvis. Interlace your hands behind your head, spiraling your elbows forward, shoulder blades draw down your back. Now inhale, exhale, curl your collarbones forward. And just hold for a second, good. Now lengthen through the crown of your head as you come down, but still try to keep your ribs integrated towards your belly button. Now widen through your ribs, breathe low, and then exhale, curl forward. Now bring your hands forward, push them into an imaginary surface, and then bring them back behind your head. Hold for a second. Now, as we breathe here, if we send our breath up, our head lowers, right? Whereas if we send our breath down, it can actually help create some buoyancy and maintain that height, yeah? Just hold, and then push one foot into the ground, float the other leg to tabletop. Press that foot down, other side. Now, as we're doing this, we're going to take our opposite hand, place it on our thigh. Now, if our shoulder is coming up and around, that's going to be a lot of pec. So we're going to think about that shoulder blade kind of coming down, finding our armpit muscle, and we're pushing into the hand with our leg as well. So we're finding oblique and glute. Good. Not actually rotating our torso yet, maintaining a new, like a forward posture, right? So we're just finding that connection, right? Good. Now, if you need a break, of course, take one. Otherwise, we're going to hold the leg up, bring our hand to the thigh, and rotate, hold. Just find that position. See if you can maintain that connection, and then back. Rotate, press, and hold. Now, if you're side bending, see if you can lengthen through the crown of your head as if you're a bendy straw and you've just been lengthened back to your full height. And back and forth, really thinking about that hold. Elizabeth, move a little bit more from your hip joint when you press your foot down rather than your knee. Yeah. Good. Last one, each side. Come back to center. Both legs up, head comes down. Now, we're going to pick one arm, bring that arm up to the sky. Now, this is going to stay connected to your torso to start. So just exhale, see where that hand comes as you lift your torso. And then back. So it's tempting to try to lead from the arm, but the arm is just going where our torso tells it to go. Now, if having your legs up in this position is too challenging or uncomfortable, please feel free to bring them to the ground. 2 more like this. Keeping that arm suction cupped in the socket. Now, all we get to do is add rotation. Arm still just comes along for the ride. Right? So it's going to point towards that opposite thigh. Other hands can stay behind the head. Good. Now, the opposite side leg is going to push away from you and back. Reach and back. 2 more on this side. Last one on this side. And then we get to do the other side. So bring both legs back together, squeeze them, suction cup that arm in the socket, and just see where it goes. Now, once again, if you need to bring your feet down to the ground, that's great, it's fine. I, for example, have a little bit of scoliosis on my lumbar spine. So sometimes with both of my feet, and we're just coming forward, we're not rotating yet. Sometimes it causes me to get a little out of alignment with my feet up, right? So listen to your body. Good. 2 more. Just letting that arm come down because you're lifting your chest. Now you can add rotation. And once again, we're trying to lengthen through our crown. So if we side bend, see about coming back. We're just rotating. And make sure you hold at the top to see what your body is saying, right? A lot of times we try to skip through that end range because it's hard. Couple more. And then we get to add that leg. So now we push the opposite leg away and come back. Now, if your legs are on the ground, you can have one leg at tabletop and just bring it in as you push it away. Good, couple more. And 2. Last one. And come back to center. Hug your knees in towards your chest. Nice job, you guys. Go ahead, bring your hands behind your thighs. Press your thighs into your hands. So you've got a little bit of connection here. Armpit muscles draw down from your lats. Now curl and look at your knees and just start to rock a little bit. And then you can eventually come all the way up. Nice job. Grab your prop. We're going to pop it behind our back. You guys okay? You all had the exact same expression coming up. Like I just woke you up from a horrible dream. All right. Yeah. We're gonna extend over our ball or pillow and just see what our back says. Now inhale, exhale, nod your chin, sink your ribs down, curl forward, looking in between your knees. Let your elbows be in your periphery. Yeah. And then try to resist gravity here. So if you just let gravity take control, right, we're gonna fall. So imagine that I'm trying to push you down and you're gonna resist me just a little bit. Don't let me do it. Okay. And then exhale, curl back up. So it's like we're playing weird version of tug of war, right? You're gonna lull me into a false sense of security, let me win. And then come back up. Good. Trying to find equal extension, right? So if you're only finding extension through your low back, see if you can open your collarbones more. If you're maintaining a big tuck of your tailbone and only moving from your ribs, you can initiate with that, but then at the end, slowly let your tailbone unfurl as long as it feels okay. 2 more. And last one. Hold this one up. Now, you can either be down here for support, or you can be up here for support and challenge. In between is just, I find a little bit harder on my neck. So pick one or the other, bring your hands forward and just start pumping your arms. And try not to let your chest move. Don't let your head move, right? So if this is happening, either come down or get closer, right? We're looking forward. It's like we're actually trying to roll forward. Good. Lift a little higher for me. Yeah, try to maintain that. Good. And if you need to, yeah, you can sink your belly button down, curl forward a little bit more. Yeah, good. Now feel how much more challenging it is to pump your arms when you're on an unstable surface. And so our tendency is to want to be like this, but I want you to actually pump your arms and see how much effort it takes to stabilize. And then bring one leg to tabletop if you like. Step that foot down. Bring your other leg to tabletop if you like. Step it down. Now, switch, hold, switch, push down into the ground. It's not just a tap, it is a push. We are trying to use the floor to get extra muscle recruitment, you guys. So push your foot down. Yeah. Try not to let your chest bounce. Reach forward. I know this feels like a million as opposed to 100. And it was. We're going to bring our hands down and extend. I know it was a different variation of 100 and kind of challenging, right? Now extend one leg at a time and just feel what your body says. Now nod your chin, sink your ribs down, curl forward. Yeah. Now, you can either maintain the prop behind you and getting extension with this. It also kind of takes out the middleman. So I'm going to demonstrate one or two with, and I'm going to demonstrate them away. Draw your shoulder blades down. Think about hugging your ribs back. Curl your tailbone towards your face. If you are using the prop, you're going to slowly extend. Then sweep your arms around. Nod your chin, sink the ribs back and down. Good. And let's all try that again with the prop, as long as it feels okay on your back. Now, if you choose to get rid of the prop, that is fine, but you should put something behind your back or bend your knees if you feel like you have to use extra force at some point, right? So if you feel like you get to a point you have to kind of wrench yourself up because either your back isn't responding or something's not connecting, instead of that, use your legs or use a prop. So you can either bend your knees in and then push them away to kind of help you. Or if you don't need that much assistance, push them away on the way out and bend them on the way in. That will start getting the timing between your upper body and lower body. It also shortens your like hip flexors in case they're tight and not letting that extensibility happen. Good, 2 more like this. Just letting your spine move, using your breath. Last one. So we inhale, exhale, rolling forward, not up. Good. Now scoot towards the front of your mat. And if you would like rolling like a ball to be more supported, you will still want to maintain this position. We're not arching over the ball, but the prop lets us know where we are in space and gives us a little support. So if rolling like a ball is scary for you or it doesn't work right, use the ball as a prop. Keep it close to you. If you're like, I got this, make sure you're looking at your feet the whole time so you don't extend or bonk your head. I would say don't go as far, yeah. So, and then curl and roll. Good. Now, if you feel kind of a thunk, right? If it's more like, come onto your back instead and just start doing a pill bug, right? Start seeing what part of your back you have to maybe roll through a little bit more. Good. Yeah. 2 more. Last one. Good. Nice job, you guys. My favorite reason for doing those, aside from the fact that it should feel good on your spine, is when we get a little bit older, learning to tuck our chin so we don't bonk our head if we fall back is super, super important. Bring your arms forward. Knees bent. If you would like a little inner thigh friend, go ahead. We're going to squeeze the ball with our inner thighs. Shoulder blades draw down. Exhale, curl your tailbone towards your face. We're just rolling back a little bit, not super far. Now, take one arm out to the side and then come back. And other side. So look straight ahead. Don't look at your hand because we're doing a counter rotation exercise here. Good. Now, if you tend to go to like a pretty far range of motion, pause just right before. We're just dragging that arm back. Good. And then dive forward, restack. Now, if you felt your ribs shift or you felt your sits bones shift, don't go as far. You can also hold on to your legs. We're doing it again. So curl it back, hold. Now, just try it where you're still holding on. Try to keep even weight distribution on your sits bones. Try to keep those ribs from shifting and use your breath there to help you. So let's just for funsies, hang out for a second, hold your breath. And then look at your hand. It's hard to kind of maintain that stability the same way. Now, on your next one, big inhale, exhale. See how much easier it is? Yeah, one more each side. And then come forward. And we're going to bring our knees apart, feet together, and just relax over our legs for a second. Now, if you are kind of tight here, like me, you're like, man, my knees just don't want to go down. You can let your elbows be heavy. We're not forcing any pressure. into the legs. We're just letting our elbows be heavy, and we're actually going to push up into our elbows with our legs. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and then you just inhale. Stop pressing. See if your body melts just a little bit more. Okay. Now, we are going to come all the way up. If you would like to cross your legs and maintain this, that's great. If you want to extend your legs, great. If you want to prop yourself up, also great. We're going to start with a little hug because you deserve it. We're just going to look to the left and try to rotate to the right as we keep looking to the left. It's really, really challenging. Now look to the right and try to rotate to the left. Yeah, same. Okay, now we're going to slouch our shoulders. Like, brr, it's cold. Try to keep that slouch and rotate. No matter where you're looking, it's still really hard, right? Now retract both of your shoulders. And it's easier, but it's still kind of blocking, right? So now let everything relax. We're going to just look to the right. And just let our left shoulder come forward slightly. And just let your right shoulder rotate back slightly. And then come back to center. Gorgeous, everybody. So much easier, right? We weren't even really bringing any force. So look, and just bring one shoulder forward a little, one shoulder back a little. Good. Now, if you're arching, try to roll your sits bones forward a little bit. Close the ribs. We want to kind of rotate along a singular axis as opposed to arching, because we're trying to get our transverse abdominis and our obliques to help us, right? So if you need to envision wringing out a towel, you can. Good. One more each side. Good. Now we're going to do something just slightly different because most of us have a lot of kind of pain in between our shoulder blades because we're like this a lot, right? So sit up nice and tall. Bring one elbow in front of you, other hand underneath that elbow. Now, the elbow is going to actually be pushing out, but you're going to match that with your hand. So just push into your hand. Everybody feel your posterior shoulder kicking on a little bit? Shoulder muscle? Yeah, good. Now maintain that. Rotate your ribs around and down while maintaining that pressure. Come back to center. Maintain the pressure. We're not bringing it across. Rotate and down and back. Rotate and down. Keep that pressure. Rotate and down. One more. Shoulder blade stays nice and set. And then hands to your knees, lift your collarbones. We get to do the other side. So if as you're doing this, this starts happening, or you feel it back there, set your shoulder blade more. Keep it pressing out. We want to feel that deltoid a little bit. Suction cup your arm bone in the socket a little bit. Yeah, retract just slightly. There. Good. Now press out, rotate and down. Good. And back. Once again, if the shoulder's coming forward, slide it back in the socket. And down. This should not be really anything we feel in the neck. If you do, find a different position of the arm. Don't press as hard. 2 more. Good. Hands on your knees, lift your collarbones. Now round your back, look down, and we lift our collarbones again. 1 more. And come onto hands and knees. If it's not comfortable to have your hands directly underneath your shoulders, you can always be on your fists or you can come onto your forearms. But I'd like you to try, if your hands are underneath your shoulders, to put a little bit of extra pressure on your pointer finger. Now, press up towards the sky just a little bit and slide one foot out. Push it down into the ground and then let it fold back. And then other side, push down into the ground. Trying to get a little bit of flexion through that ankle joint, right? So if we are almost pointing, try to let that heel press back in space a little bit. Now, if this is where you are today, great, stick with that. Otherwise, you can come into a plank and you can do front support and reach. Trying once again to find that shoulder. So it's like you are gently externally rotating through your upper arm bones and pulling some tissue paper apart. Good. 3, 2. Last set. Knees down. Press yourself into a rest position. Bring your hands up and over to one side. Push yourself away. And then other side. And we're coming onto our side. So if you have one of the props, please feel free to use it as a pillow. Now, for this first second, I want you to let your ribs on the bottom sink into the mat. And notice how that creates shortening on the top and lengthening on the bottom. Now, we want to find a nice even connection. So think about lifting your ribs up a bit, as if I wanted to slide a sheet of paper underneath you, and then lengthen that top hip away from your face slightly. Good. Now extend your leg out. Let your foot dangle today. Using that glute, you're going to push your heel into an imaginary wall. And then bring it back in space just a little bit without letting your hips move. And then just let it come back forward, press it back in space. And then back. So as you press it back in space, let's envision a couple different things. This first one, Stephanie, if you can, roll your top hip bone forward slightly. Yeah. This first one, just imagine it kind of moving freely. Notice how the muscles sort of activate, but not like a lot. Now this one, imagine that your heel is against something. You want to just push into the item, right? So say it's a couch and you just want to push your heel into the couch. Feel how everything kind of connects a little bit more because we just told our nervous system to apply more force. Good. Now, we're going to drag that foot back, hold, and then let it come forward. Drag it back, and then let it fold forward. Now, if your range is here, that's great. If your range is here, also great. But we're trying to maintain spinal stability. So if you have to round your back to get your foot, or you arch your back, take it a little smaller, right? We're trying to let that thigh bone just glide freely in the socket without the rest of our body responding. Last one, hold it back. Now glance at the foot, make sure that you can't really see the whole foot, right? It should be slightly behind you. We're gonna do tiny little circles here. Keeping your hips still and pointing slightly forward. So if it's rocking or pointing up towards the sky, I would like it to reach forward just a little bit more. Elizabeth, point your top hip bone a little, yeah. And then think about dragging your foot back more, yep. Good. And then reverse. Good. Everybody feeling that glute just a little bit? Yeah. 4, 3, 2, 1, extend that bottom leg out. Bring your top leg down. Now paintbrush your foot up. Inhale, exhale, lift that other foot to meet it. And then bring it back down and down. So notice if you've got it really high, you're gonna have to move a lot to get it there, right? So we are trying to keep it pushing away, then lifting, hold, back and down. Couple more. Good. 2 more. Paintbrush, inner thigh, down. Last one. Hold. And then slowly lower both. Inhale, exhale, slowly lift both. Squeeze the inner thighs together. Bring your feet forward. Yep, there you go. Is that a little bit easier? Good. 2 more. Last one. Now, if you want to get fancy, you can roll onto your back and then your other side, or you can just switch sides. It's up to you. So let that foot, or first let your ribs lift. Let that foot push away from you. Let the foot dangle. We're just going to push it back. You can try a couple where you just envision it moving freely and easily. And then you can envision it pushing into that wall or couch. Once again, our hip bone is pointing forward and we're trying not to let it respond, right? So does that mean that throughout life, our hips should stay static and never move? No, but we should be able, in an ideal world, to be able to differentiate out between like thigh or pelvis, right? That'll make everything easier. 2 more. Now let that foot come forward and drag it back. Now, if you have tight hip flexors, right? Maybe you don't go back as far, but you really get that glute active. If you have tight hamstrings, maybe you don't bring your foot forward a lot, right? Because we're trying to keep that pelvis still. So almost biased towards sticking your butt out when that foot comes forward and almost biased towards tucking it under when it comes back. Not aggressively, just a little bit. Good. Once again, trying to let that thigh bone just swing freely. On the way forward. 2 more. Last one. Hold it back. Glance and make sure you can't just see your whole foot. And then we do little circles. Okay. So drag it back, up and around. Imagine dragging your foot through like wet sand. Elizabeth, bring your foot behind you more. Yeah. Stephanie, if you can bring your foot behind you just a little baby bit more. Yeah. And drag your foot back just a little bit more. Yeah, so it's more glute as opposed to TFL. Does that feel a little different? Okay. 2. And then reverse. And Eva, actually, I want you to roll your hip bone towards Elizabeth a little bit more. Yeah. And then keep your foot back just a tiny bit more. Yeah. 3, 2, and 1. Nice. Extend both legs. And then brush your foot up. Hold. Inhale. Exhale. Bring the other foot to meet it. And then back down. Now you also know where your foot can get, right? Yeah. Yeah. First one never counts. How's that glute feeling, everybody? Great. Yeah. So the reason when we were doing our circles, I wanted your foot behind you as opposed to forward is we were trying to isolate glutes a little bit more than TFL, because TFL for stuff like this loves to help. And so we were trying to get the sleepier muscles to join the party. And then last one, hold. Both feet come down. Inhale, exhale. And again. Couple more. And 2. Last 1. And then if you want to get fancy, you can bring it. We're going to come up. And actually, we're coming onto all fours one more time, because we're going to get our extension in this way. So first, just let your whole spine come up to the sky like a Halloween cat, and then let it go the opposite direction. Yeah. Now we're going to try to find a little bit of spinal articulation. So holding this, we're going to nod our chin, press the floor away, hollow out from the upper body, and then let the lower body respond. And then we're going to do it again, the opposite way. So shoulder blades draw down, open your throat, curl your collarbones forward, and then allow your whole back to respond. Now curl your tailbone down, hollow out from the front. We're trying to find that articulation, and then widen through your sits bones, go the opposite way. I'm going to show this from a couple different directions. So now we nod our chin, hollow out from the front, pushing the floor away, and then let your lower body respond. And then shoulder blades draw down, open your collarbones, and then let your lower body respond. And then we reverse. So lower body starts, melting your tailbone down like Salvador Dali's clock, lifting your hip bones, press the floor away, and then reverse it, widen through your sits bones. Trying to find a little bit of segmentation between our vertebrae. We get one more each direction. So nod your chin, hollow out, and then let the rest of your spine respond. Keep that tuck for a second as you widen through your collarbones. Try to get a little bit of extension through your thoracic, then your lumbar, then your sacrum, and then we reverse it. So tailbone down, lift the belly buttons, push the floor away, look down, and then hold that with your upper body as we unwind with the lower. And then all the way. Come back to neutral. We're going to come all the way to standing. And first, just let yourself kind of dangle out of your hips. And just gently nod your head, and then gently shake your head. Now bring your hands to one side. Get a little bit of rotation through your thigh, maybe a little hamstring stretch, and then other side. And it wouldn't be class without a tiny bit of balance work. So roll all the way to standing. Now first, we're going to bring heel to toe. And if that is too much, you can always kind of bring your feet side to side. You can always just squeeze your inner thighs together. And you can also do this on an unstable surface like your mat. Now, think about, before we do anything, let your feet move, right? They should be able to pronate and supinate, right? Holding on to something is fine. Center your weight. And then if it's appropriate for you and your body, look over one shoulder. And then look over your other shoulder. It's a lot more challenging than it feels like it should be, right? Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race. One more. And you might be like, why is this so hard? I mean, because it is, right? Balance, let's do the other side, is a multifaceted skill, right? So balance is a combination of nervous system, muscular system, ocular system, vestibular system, as well as posture, as well as mobility, as well as strength, right? As well as also like if we have pain or fear surrounding movement, right? So if your balance is not ideal, it luckily is a skill that can be improved. One more and come back to center. Now, we're just going to check something. Now, imagine you have forward head and rounded shoulders, right? Now, see where your balance now is. Lift one foot. This is way harder to hold, right? And then other side. So now, think about shoulder blades drawing down without letting the pelvis come forward. We're just stacked, push down into the ground, lift a foot. It's a little bit easier, right? And then other side. It's a little easier. So now, if it's too much to walk backwards, you're going to walk forwards. And I'll show both. So we're going to bring one foot forward, look over your shoulder, other side, back and forth, and then we're going to reverse it. Boom. Backwards, it's going to be a little bit trickier. If backwards isn't that bad, you can just flip around and keep doing backwards. If it's too much, you can just flip around and keep doing forwards, right? That's fine. You have one more each direction. Boom, 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 boom. Head, feet together. Last one, feet all the way together. Bring your arms in front of you. Full zombie arms. It's like October, and close your eyes. Now, first line of defense, if you feel like you're going to fall, is open your eyes. You can also just use that balance you just found to step to the side. Then open your eyes, draw your shoulders to your ears, drop them straight down. And give yourselves a round of applause. Nice work today, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Yvonne.